Hi, a big hello and welcome to my show Unbound. I'm your host Mamtaa. This is a space which is curated for people from different walks of life who have sailed through uncharted waters, and they are here with us to take a deep dive into their personal journey so we can find our inspiration and nuggets of wisdom. So let's get started and unravel, unearth, and uncover a story of an absolute unstoppable human who has dared to achieve the unthinkable. Come, let's unbound together. She's a traveler, writer, and adventurer who has been to 23 countries. Her debut book, Dreaming of Everest, has been an Amazon bestseller and chronicles her 130-kilometer journey to the Everest base camp. Leading marketing at National Geographic India, a part of the Walt Disney Company, she has brought home many accolades, including India's top 50 PR and communication professionals. She is Saachi Dhillon. Hi, Saachi. Welcome to my podcast, Unbound. How are you doing today?
Thank you for such a warm welcome. I'm doing very well, and I'm so happy to be here with you.
It's an absolute pleasure for us to have you, Saachi. Were you always a determined person?
Not at all. In fact, when I was in college and just starting out on my professional journey as a marketer, I was not very sure of where I wanted to go with this and whether this is the right path for me. It's only in the last few years where I feel that this sense of confidence and focus as well as clarity in terms of what I want to do has come probably as a result of my various experiences during my travels and during my working career. So I'm from Chandigarh, born and brought up over there. I did my schooling as well as my college from there. I've studied economic honors, after which I went abroad. I was in the UK to do my master's. And I think that's where I really changed as a person. When I was in Chandigarh, staying with my parents, of course, it was a very guarded atmosphere. And when I was in the UK, I was pretty much left to do things on my own, plan my day on my own. And that just helped me grow up, I feel. So in hindsight, I think that it's always nice to get out of your comfort zone and go out there and experience things. Of course, there were many challenges that came my way, not only when I was studying, but even when I was out there looking for my first job in London. That was in the middle of the recession, which was a very difficult period. Starting out with odd jobs, trying to find your way there. Eventually, I came back to India because of some visa issues at the time. Work permits were limited, and I've been back here since the last, over a decade now. Although all this time I have been traveling as well, because that is something I'm really passionate about. Travel, solo travel specifically. And I have to say, I've been doing this way before all of the social media and Google Maps and everything else came into the picture. So it's been quite a interesting journey.
Super. So tell me, when and where did this travel bug really bite you? When was that first time, that you had that rush that, oh, this is something I love?
So I think it was my first solo backpacking trip across Europe. This is when I was living in London, and my friends couldn't join me. So at that time I thought, okay, might as well go, because I don't know how long I'm in this part of the world for. I did get lost many times. I used to, as you can imagine, there were paper maps at the time. So I would hold the map and try to figure out which direction I'm supposed to go towards. I did lose my way, but eventually, over these experiences during that trip, while I went to many countries then, and post that also I've been to many different parts of the world on my own, it's really helped me find myself, I would say. After getting lost so many times, of course, the people that you come across, Largely, they are good. They're helpful, is what I found as, a solo woman traveler. Of course, you need to keep your wits about you and go with your gut to stay safe. But overall, it's been such a wonderful, fulfilling experience. And that's when I really started enjoying writing about my travels. That's baby steps towards my first book, which came out last year.
Absolutely, and many congratulations. So tell me a little bit about your strengths or talents as you look at it, which has really helped you reach where you are in life.
Communication, definitely. I think that's a strong point that I have, whether it's verbal and of course written is something I can say as well now. That's for sure one of the top strengths, I would say. The second one is just being open-minded, being open to people, experiences, challenges, come what may, but just the ability to keep going. So I think the third one would be grit. And those moments have happened with me from time to time for various things, whether it's, getting your dream job or, again, I know I keep going back to the Everest example, but the other time that comes to my mind is when I was actually standing at Everest Base Camp. It was freezing cold, it was snowing, and of course I was cold, but I got goosebumps there as well because I got to meet an Everester who had summited the peak twice, and she gave me a motivational speech over there, and that was really out of the world.
Now that you're reliving the moment with us, Saachi, why don't you exactly tell us what was that moment like to be at the Everest camp? And also, after this, tell us that what is that really inspired you to dream of Everest?
So my journey to the Everest Base Camp actually began somewhere in 2018. I had just come back from another trip to Europe, and while it was amazing as always, but I just felt that, I'm doing the same thing over and over again. Of course, I'm going and seeing a new place or a country, but it's that run-of-the-mill thing that any tourist would do. So I just felt a bit unsatisfied, or I felt like I needed to challenge myself. And that's when I thought of Everest Base Camp, which was one of my bucket list items. And then it really worked.
Just like that idea didn't get planted or seeded after looking at or watching a movie or reading something. Just like that, you picked this idea up.
So I've always been a fan of hiking and walking and nature in general. So I was just thinking, where can I go next in terms of a trek? And of course, EBC comes up right at the top when you're looking for one of those once in a lifetime experiences. So I did ponder over it. It's not like I saw the trek and I signed up for it right away. I actually thought about it for a good month or so because I was scared. I had never been for a high altitude trek before. And high altitude is generally any altitude above 8,000 feet because it takes your body even longer to acclimatize since it's pretty much 50% of the oxygen levels at ground level. So I was very nervous, and I can't tell you, I trained very hard for 6 months leading up to the trek, which I finally went on in May 2019. I would go to the gym come rain or shine in the middle of this freezing Delhi winter. Even when you couldn't see anything outside your window, I would still go. And then I would come back and I would climb up all the way to my apartment, which was on the 19th floor at the time. And I would go down again with a backpack, just to increase my lung capacity and stamina as well as endurance. So I was trying to do whatever I could while living here, working at the same time, working towards this dream of mine, which was to go to Everest. Overall, the experience was transformational. It was, when I was training for this experience or wanting to go to base camp, I was so nervous that I never saw Everest in my dreams. So I wasn't even sure if I would make it. And primarily because of the high altitude and, all sorts of things you read on the internet about what can go wrong. It started off on a really adventurous note where we had to take this tiny plane which flies to one of the most dangerous airports in the world, which is called Lukla. The first time it missed the landing strip. Then we had round 2 where we went back. Again, we didn't know if we'll make it or not, but thankfully we landed. And 5 minutes in, there was this torrential rainstorm. The group got scattered. It was just crazy. One of those experiences where you're thinking, oh, it's Murphy's Law. Maybe I made the wrong decision. You're second guessing yourself. But then you keep going. And the scenery improves. You're in the lap of some of the highest mountains in the world. It was such a humbling feeling, I cannot tell you, because all of the troubles and worries that we generally carry with us, they just slowly started to fade away. With every step, every day you're walking 9 to 10 kilometers, it just felt like I felt lighter. And I did actually lose a lot of weight also by the time I reached base camp. But that was not the only reason I felt light. But it was such a meditative experience. For a week, till you get to base camp, and then you're back to a place called Namche Bazaar, there is no connectivity whatsoever. So you're completely cut off.
They did hear from you for a week and you were in no contact.
I was not contactable, and that is when things actually went downhill for me, because I got this Khumbu cough, which is well known in that area. It's a high altitude cough. It just became progressively worse every day because we were gaining altitude. We were also walking a lot. It was stressful for the body because it was not something I had done before. And 65 kilometers one way is no joke in a week's time. So it was one of those things that happened towards the end, which is when we were nearing base camp. My situation got really worse. In fact, now when I look back and I think back, I really wonder who carried me there. And I joke about this also. Maybe it was the Himalayan Yeti, because I was delirious, I was tired, I was sick, feverish, coughing away, and people who had been walking alongside us, not only people in a group. It becomes a small community when you're cut away from the rest of the world. So, people who I had met along the way, they would tell me, hurry up, if you don't make it, the weather's taking a turn for the worse, you might just have to go back. And it was little things like this which made me even more determined to get there. So I really don't know what got into me that I made it there finally. And I managed to make it back also. I wouldn't say in one piece because I was not in the best state. But again, where there's a will, there's a way. And I also feel that magical things happen. So close to base camp, when I was supposed to come down to Gorakshep, which is the last stop before base camp, which is where we were supposed to rest for the night, I really needed some hot tea. It's snowing. There is this high force, gale winds blowing. You don't even know what the temperature is. It's below freezing. And I just wanted hot tea. And out of nowhere comes this Sherpa, who was actually, again, wearing a National Geographic hat. Imagine, what are the odds of that happening? And he offered me tea. So it's experiences like that which really make you wonder.
Wow. I actually got goosebumps listening to this, Saachi. I mean, indeed. And what comes to my mind is, will you actually do all of this all over again?
I would go somewhere else. There was this really beautiful mountain which is known as the Matterhorn. But there is a place I don't want to go back to. It's a mountain called Amadablam. I need to train more for that though, because it's a technical peak for which you need mountaineering experience. It is such a beautiful mountain.
At Unbound, we believe in the power of unhinged minds and untamed ideas of people from all walks of life. As we sit to talk with some of them, we are listening to your voice too. So, share your ideas, thoughts, or takeaways from this podcast as a review on Apple Podcast, or just drop us a message on Instagram @unboundwithmamtaa. You can also mail us at unboundwithmamtaa@gmail.com. And remember to subscribe and follow this podcast and stay connected with us.
What is your biggest weakness, Saachi, if we were to ask you?
That is a good question. Maybe to some extent I may be stubborn in this. If I have set my mind to do something, I would go ahead anyway. Not in a foolish way, of course. If it comes to climbing mountains, I'll make sure that I'm prepared.
What's your FOMO? What's your fear of missing out in life?
If someone close to me is somewhere and I'm not, whether it's on a trip or whether, it's going and seeing a favorite band somewhere, I think that would be my fear of missing out. Also, I do have big goals for myself. I want to keep growing in different ways. I want to explore new sides of me. So me as a speaker, of course, now it's currently the focus is on me as an author and as a writer. But what else is it that I can do? Perhaps taking on a new hobby like playing the piano. Again, that came to a standstill because of the pandemic. I did start that before. So I'm very growth oriented that way. So I like to keep pushing myself to go further. Of course, it's not like I just, go way up to the top just like that. You do fall and fail, but eventually I feel that you do get there.
Yeah. So basically that's the mindset and attitude that you have towards life. Super. What's your JOMO in that case? What are things that you actually like to miss out on? Your joy of missing out?
Very busy malls, busy shopping places, definitely. Or mundane activities, quite frankly. Wherever there is not enough mental stimulation, I just try to avoid those things or places.
All right. What about role models and mentors who have inspired you, guided you in life?
There have been many, frankly, from my mom to my aunts to my bosses at work. There has been so much to learn from each and every one of them. And I feel that today, who I am as a professional as well, there has been something or the other that each of them have given me. So I wouldn't take one name because I feel that would be unfair. But there has always been something to learn from everyone. Even for my book, there's a friend of mine who really egged me on to keep trying, to keep reaching out to as many publishers and, to keep perfecting my draft for the book. So there have been people at various junctures in my life who have helped me become who I am today.
Amazing. What about movies or interactions or maybe even shows that have influenced you or in some way your decision making or choices in life?
I think, if I can, recently I was watching National Geographic's Limitless with Chris Hemsworth, where they're talking about mental barriers that you can overcome to live a long, healthy life. I feel on some level I have been inspired by that particular show. Again, since I'm very focused on self-improvement and, what more can be done, that would be one of them. Otherwise, there's this movie which you may have heard of. It's called Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara. I really love that film and I love to live by it because you never know, life is so short.
What about the movie Unchai? Have you seen it? Have you watched it?
I actually have not seen it. I want to, but it just hasn't happened so far.
What about books that you're currently reading? Are you an avid reader now that you're an author? I mean, have you always been in the habit of reading as well?
I have been. Currently, I'm reading this book called Atomic Habits. And I also started reading Tomb of Sand, which is last year's International Booker Prize winner. So there's always a bunch of books actually lying on my bedside table.
So while you are actually not traveling, is your mind very focused or does it wander?
It's actually very focused on the task at hand. So if I'm at work, I'm at work 100%. If I'm traveling somewhere, then of course I like to be in the moment and enjoy it and nurture it. Yeah, that's just who I am.
What about your own book, Saachi, Dreaming of Everest? Tell us something about it. Again, not to mention that, of course, this is your inspiration from Everest, but what more? Why Dreaming of Everest? You've already done Everest, right?
I have now. I think I need to dream of something else next. So my book, honestly, my hope is to inspire people to chase their dreams and to find their own Everest, whatever it may be in their lives. That's what I want them to take away from this, even if they're not into trekking. So it's been written from that mindset, quite frankly. And through my own experience of being on that journey, facing those challenges in the form of poor weather, poor health, and just still managing to emerge victorious or get to or reach new heights. It's that what I want people to take away from this book. And I'd just like to add that, again, it was one of those coincidences where I got to meet Peter Hillary, the son of Sir Edmund Hillary, the same year that I had gone. Yeah, the same year that I went for this trek. And he's the one who's actually written the foreword for my book.
Oh, wow. Super. We'll give you a drum roll on this, Saachi. This is awesome. You got to be lucky for that to happen, man. I mean, of course, you've done your bit, but something like that to really come is amazing.
Especially for my first book, and that's about Everest. So it's, things just connect. Like Steve Jobs used to say, you can always connect the dots going backwards. So it's one of those things.
Absolutely. In retrospect, everything makes sense. I always say that. So one big learning that COVID has been for you, this adventurer, traveler, did you get completely trapped, or was there another level of finding yourself that happened in COVID?
So I actually was very productive during COVID. I was at home in Chandigarh and I wrote this book during that time.
Oh, wow.
So that was one of the things I did, but I also did continue climbing. So I was in Manali for a couple of months in 2020 and then again the next year. And I was just climbing mountains.
No. You got to hold this. You got to hold. The whole world is in their houses, locked up, and you were climbing mountains?
So this was after, of course, the first wave. So this is somewhere, towards autumn, when things had sort of semi-opened up, but not completely. So yeah, that is when I went. I found this homestay, and there were people, because I was also working remotely at the time. So on weekends or on days off, I would go and chalk out new trails and just go climb. So I think that I had some of the most wonderful times, and I had some friends who are from the mountaineering fraternity who were kind enough to take me to some of these amazing places. But if I have to look at the bright side, this would definitely be it. Just the opportunity to work remotely, because none of us had thought that was possible. And of course, now we're going back to the same old, regular office work mode. But that was just so refreshing.
Super. I'm glad that you could make such beautiful things in times of adversity, which is like, again, you got to be lucky for that. Your mantra for dealing with failures and mistakes, Saachi, how do you really, pull yourself together and just dust it off when there is a failure or there is a complete disaster that you're faced with?
Honestly, my mantra is to keep going. And it's not like I have not failed or I don't face challenges from time to time. I do. But then you just have to keep your head down and think about how you can overcome that particular challenge.
Super. It's interesting that you say that, because you're somebody who's always looking outwardly for challenges to up your game. And when failure strikes to any of us, I mean, that is the key, that you actually go all inward and, shrink in and find your own answers till the time, of course, you gather yourselves back up and be out there. So that's an interesting perspective. Really, how do you travel in cases where it is a solo travel or a remotest town, or where maybe there are issues with transportation, or even with staying independently into these remote places, which may be even out of contact region, etc. How do you really make that happen and yet remain on the safe side of things? How do you do this?
So I definitely plan my trips well in advance. I do my research. I'll go to a hotel or a B&B which has good reviews. Besides that, I'll try to find a local contact. That always is helpful, because someone always knows someone somewhere. So it's always helpful to make use of your network. And just keep your wits about you, frankly. Because a lot of times when things go wrong, you can feel that something is off. And if something is, then just trust your gut and try to get out of that situation in the best possible way that you can. Some pepper spray also helps.
Pepper spray.
Some pepper spray also helps.
All right. What about biases, Saachi? Like, again, coming back to gender gaps and biases, have you actually faced any? I mean, be it education, work, personal life, even travel. Have they come in your way ever?
Luckily, no, not really. I haven't faced anything of the sort.
And what about some of your own biases? Are you biased towards something in life?
Close-minded people.
Okay. All right. So your go-to travel destination where you can just keep going again and again and again. Is there any such place for you?
Kasauli. That has to be my go-to place, because it's close to home. Been going there since I was a kid. There's so many memories are attached to that place.
Super. And if you're allowed to do a time travel, which era would you like to be in?
Oh, the 1920s.
Okay, and why?
New York, or perhaps even in England. I'm quite a fan of those times. I just feel that there was a lot of changes that were happening in society and just generally as well. I like simpler times.
Would you still want to be in India or somewhere?
England.
Okay, so now we are almost at the fag end of the show. But before that, there is a fireside chat, like I call it, rapid reflex round, which you got to finish up fast. So this is a volley of questions I'm going to throw on you, and I want your answer in maybe a word or two. So are you ready for this, Saachi?
Yes, I am.
All right, take a deep breath and let's get started. When in doubt, you like to
Wander.
Never have you ever. Complete this sentence.
Eaten a spider.
Traveling light means
Letting your inhibitions go.
if not Earth, then you would like to.
Go to the moon.
Your favorite food,
Butter chicken.
your life purpose is.
To inspire people to get out of their comfort zone.
One thing you wish parents never said to their children.
You can't do this.
And one thing you wish or you would like to change about our education system.
To have more outdoor activities, perhaps make them compulsory so that a child has that well-rounded development. I wish I had these experiences when I was in school.
All right. Love to you is,
Necessary.
and Everest to you is.
Everest Base Camp.
All right. With that, we come to the end of this show. You have really and truly come unbound. On the parting note, I would just like to say, may you keep climbing each summit with even more strength and power. and emerge taller than any Everest in your life. Thanks for inspiring us, sharing your joy, purpose, vision, and journey with us. We wish you an unbounded success ahead.
Thank you so much, Mamtaa. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. And just for the listeners, I would like to say you can grab a copy of the book on Amazon, Flipkart, anywhere else, Kindle. So please give it a read. Let me know what you think.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I would love to know from you what idea or insight you unboxed from today's conversation. Just drop me a message over LinkedIn or in my inbox, and remember to follow this podcast so that when the next episode drops, you can join me for yet another one too. Keep coming and keep unbounding. Till then, this is your host Mamtaa signing off.